Shenhe was born into a family of exorcists. However, fate would lead her to become a disciple of the higher beings of Liyue known as the Adepti. Formally, she is a student of Cloud Retainer, but she was such a model student that many Adepti had taken a liking to her, and thus she became a master of all Adeptal arts despite her mortality. For many years, aside from her Adeptus teachers and the occasional illuminated beast, she lived in complete isolation, causing her personality to grow distant and indifferent. This has also made it so that normal humans who have had the chance to meet her easily mistake her for a real Adeptus. One such rumor that spread throughout Liyue's backstreets ultimately suggested that a wandering white-haired Adeptus will come and save those who ever find themselves in a hopeless situation. As for Shenhe's side of the story, when any creatures make their way into the mountains and threaten to disturb her master's meditations, she makes quick work of them. Whether any humans see her or even get injured in the crossfire, she doesn't really care. Having been raised in the mountains since she was very young, Shenhe has no idea what normal mortal life is like. Her lack of experience and common sense has led her to believe that the simplest answer to a problem is always the best one. For example, the concepts of negotiation and compromise are foreign to her, as she'd rather resort to threats because they are faster. Other things she questions are, why do we need to pay for food? And is there any difference between intimidating civilians versus bandits? She even wholeheartedly believes that Cloud Retainer is a brilliant and eloquent conversationalist. In a way, she has a childlike purity to her, where her beliefs are the result of her chaotic yet straightforward intuition. There are many Liyue folktales which glamorize the idea of being trained by an Adeptus, but as for Shenhe's beginnings, they were anything but that. When she was 5, her mother passed away, and her father soon became overwhelmed by anguish, then resentment, then obsession, causing him to bitterly wander in search of a way to resurrect his deceased wife. Later, with almost a year having passed, he returned, in a crazed happiness. He learned of a secret art known as fate transference, which could bring back the dead in exchange for another life by doing a ritual sacrifice to the Seelie that would be summoned. When Shenhe's father lied and said that there was a surprise for her inside a cave in the mountains, she believed him, because she was just an innocent child who was happy to see her father again. Well, he took her there, and what he actually summoned was a red-eyed black monster that was out to consume their life force. Shenhe couldn't quite grasp the situation she was in, but she knew that she had to act if she wanted to live. So taking up her mother's old exorcism dagger, she fought to the death. Days later, an Adeptus investigating the trail of evil found her nearly dead and decided to rehabilitate her as well as teach her the Adeptus ways. Even after a decade of life in the mountains, Shenhe still sometimes had spurts of feelings of reminiscence. On impulse, she one day came down from the mountains to return to her old home to check on her father, who had never escaped his obsession. She came to learn from neighbors that he had passed away several years prior, and that their home was demolished by pawnbrokers, meaning nearly all traces of her past life were gone. As her old memories began to fade as well, she wasn't quite sure how to feel about the strange combination of both happiness and sadness within her. She stood still there for a long while, ignoring all those who were curious about her, until she turned around and slowly walked away, never turning back. In Liyue's own fortune-telling system, there are 2 fates that nobody wants to receive. The solitary star, which means that one is fated to live alone, away from friends and family, and the disastrous evil, which states that one will face many hardships and perils. Mooncarver read Shenhe's fortune when she was taken in, only to find that she was marked by both of these and that she had intense homicidal urges, doomed to harm others and herself. To prevent her from acting out, the Adepti bound her soul with red ropes, which would restrain this evil nature, but also shackle her human emotions. As time passed, she became more ignorant towards matters she felt were unimportant, losing part of what made her human. But as fate would have it, when she randomly passed by that mysterious traveler, long-suppressed emotions had suddenly and inexplicably resurfaced. When Shenhe was first brought to Mount Hulao, she did not talk, but she was able to get accustomed to life up there. Cloud Retainer gave her a comb of white jade from a sacred stone, telling her that if she brushed her hair 3 times with it, that she would sever ties with the mortal world and officially enter Adeptal tutelage. Shenhe did so without hesitation, and as she did, her once black hair turned a frosty silver. She still holds onto the comb as a physical representation of her connection to the Adepti, now understanding the meaning behind the 3 brushstrokes. The first represents removing useless anxiety, the second abandoning the emotions of joy and sorrow, and the third accepting this path into old age without regrets. Despite being born into a family of exorcists, Shenhe's father never taught her anything about exorcism. Thus, during the fight for her life, she was completely unprepared to take on the challenge. However, the calamitous fates, violent urges, and unyielding spirit within her were unleashed, materializing into an invisible sword and shield. She used them to tear apart the monster and prove that she was more evil than it. The battle was in a stalemate that lasted days and nights, up until the gods looked upon Shenhe with favor and rewarded her with an icy cryovision, which she used to finally win. In the past, it had guided Shenhe from her miserable fate, but in the future, it would also lead her back to the mortal realm. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching.